Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Women's 100 Miler Project new podcast series. This is our Listen While You Run series, which pretty much as we were putting up walls of text in the resources section, we realized that would be really time consuming to read. And while some people prefer reading, and that's there for those who do, part of the goal of our project is to kind of make this easy for people with busy lives and to provide a path for kind of that average woman, you know, a job, kids, other obligations, you name it. So the hope is that this series kind of allows you to learn while you're on the go, learn while you're running, learn while you're commuting, learn while you're doing other things. So this first episode is pretty much going to be everything long run. And we have Lee here to talk about long run on the training plan. Let's start with, what is long run?
Long run is when you run the longest run of your whole week. But it's so much more than that. Long run is race practice sometimes. Long run is when you build your endurance. Now, you will build some endurance by just running most of the days out of the week. But you're going to hit a limit with how much good that'll do, especially for ultramarathons. So if you want to be very good for a half marathon, you might consider just running 5 or 6 miles a day every day. And if you want to be a little faster, you might consider having one of those be an interval day. But if you want to go run 50 miles, if you want to go run 100K, if you want to go run 100 miles, you really need to get a little better at running with more fatigue, running a little more tired, running longer in a row. And so long run is the day when we start building up that mileage. When you're a beginner, especially when we've had people come to ultra from couch to 5K, which means long run may be when you suddenly start to try to go longer than 45 minutes. So for newer runners, a long run really might be going for an hour and a half, if you're a new trail runner, on the trail, and just trying to maintain a fairly even effort, which can mean walking a half of that time even. When I was brand new, my first long runs, I remember going up from 70 minutes to 80 minutes to 90 minutes when I was brand new and being proud of myself when I finally made a 2-hour long run. And that was in 2009. I was new to distance. I'd never run more than 5 miles in a row. So long run doesn't have to necessarily be this 8-hour ordeal, although occasionally when you peak out training it is. Typically I would recommend a long run when you're actually going to be training for ultras and you're past the phase 1 of this, of something more like 4 to 5 hours, maybe 6 occasionally. The peak out past 6 hours, you're going to start beating yourself up too much, but there is some value in doing that sometimes. Closer to a big event for confidence. Every once in a while I'll do a much longer long run. Usually now I race too often for it, but it's not a bad idea once in a while for confidence.
And let's talk about placement of long run on the plan. Can I just move long run to like the middle of the week training, like between the prescribed Tuesday workout and prescribed Wednesday or Thursday workout and expect the same results?
Absolutely not. And here's why. And at first it's going to seem like your long run's just being ruined. We had, you've mentioned it before, people early in our plan who would do it and then they would come on to the Facebook group and say, oh, my legs were too sore from doing hills on Saturday, whatever other workout we'd recommended, but often hills, to do an effective long run, to run it well, to run it at the pace that I usually run it at, and therefore I've decided to take a rest day before long run. And also a lot of training plans you can find out there online will have that, a rest day and then long run, and then just a few miles the next day to shake the legs out or run on tired legs, but it's literally just a few miles. Here's the thing. Elite runners train 90 miles, even up to 120 or 130 miles a week. They don't need to go practice tired legs. They're running giant volume. The rest of us are not. We're not paid professional runners, and we're not running at a pace that allows us to do that without also spending so much time that we destroy ourselves. And so what we're missing is the ability to manage our tired legs. It's very difficult. A lot of times you'll see someone who is running in the same shoes. They bought 3 or 4 boxes of them, and they trained in these shoes and rotated them, and then suddenly at mile 41 they get some terrible blister in some brand new spot and can't understand it. And that's being caused by that person changing their gait, changing their stride as their leg muscles tire out. Because there's just fatigue that happens after 40 miles that doesn't otherwise happen. You're not going to sort that out by doing one peak out 40-mile run 3 weeks before your first 50-miler. You're not going to be able to sort much of anything out. You're going to beat yourself up a lot, and it's only going to be one time of practice, and you have no time to correct if there's anything wrong. But the only thing you're really practicing is the tired legs. What's changing is your gait when your legs are beat up. So if you go do hill repeats, and then you go do 4 hours of long run, even if you hike half of it, even if your pace is compared to what you usually do just ruined in a mess, you are practicing tired legs. You're teaching your body how to manage that. This is what keeps you going through aid stations. This is what keeps you from dropping, thinking that you're broken and dying, that you've become familiar with that feeling. But yeah, the first couple long runs you do that beat up are going to suck. You're going to think I'm ruining your training. They're so slow, and that's why we have that time-based and not mileage-based. Because what you need to do is go out there for that amount of time and manage your legs the best you can. The pace will come up over time. And, you need to have a down weekend every month. You shouldn't do that every weekend. Just a weekend or two a month is plenty. 3 weekends a month is a lot. It's doable. I do it fairly often. And every once in a while I will do long run fresh. That's also of some value, just to practice actually just running better. But if you do not learn to manage tired legs ahead of being a new ultra runner, you're going to have problems.
So basically, the order of the workouts on the training plan matter.
Oh, yes.
Very much. And so maybe you have Tuesday and Wednesday off instead of Saturday and Sunday. And so maybe Tuesday is your Saturday, and Wednesday is your Sunday. You can switch the actual day of the week, but it needs to be the same order that the training plan prescribes, basically, to get the most benefit out of it.
Well, that's why we're going to cover the different workouts to show what's important. So, for example, if you've got to do hill repeats on Tuesday or Wednesday, and so then can't do your long run the next day, and then also you've still got that speed work day to do. You could feasibly do a heavy speed work day the day before long run. That's the one switchable thing. If you were to switch your interval or speed work day that's usually Tuesday or Wednesday with your Saturday, that wouldn't be so bad, because doing hard speed work will also trash your legs reasonably well. And you also need to do somewhat fresh. So that Saturday of hill repeats comes after a Friday off or just running very light. And Monday is also off or running very light the day before speed work, because speed work, you're supposed to get your heart rate way up. You're not supposed to be practicing tired legs. We're all tired sometimes. But that Tuesday or Wednesday that you're doing those kind of intervals or repeats, you're running on legs that are a little bit fresher because you're trying to learn faster leg turnover. When you're doing hill repeats, and there are different styles, and there's going to be an entire separate podcast about this, but when you're practicing downhill running and quick leg turnover, you don't need to have trashed legs. You'll just hurt yourself. Long run is supposed to be done on tired legs most of the time. And so there are ways to switch the order around a little bit and to adapt this. Once in a while, we'll have someone who can't run the day before long run, and they'll go, what do I do? I'm traveling, I can't run. I go, well, when you get up out of bed in the morning, do 6-minute legs. Right before lunch, do 6-minute legs. Right after dinner, do 6-minute legs. Do it 3 or 4 times in a day. Do all of the strength things. And then, if you could do some stair repeats or something, do. If you can't, you can't. But doing a lot of 6-minute legs in a day will make your legs sore for long run. And once in a while, you do one fresh, and you just go ahead and do a progression run where you run out the first half, paced slowly, and then try to speed up for the entire second half gradually until you're running the last half hour actually hard. That can be another way to challenge yourself. Learn to push your legs even faster when they're tired. That can also be of a lot of value.
But bottom line is that it's very deliberate for long run to be done on tired, beat up legs.
And most elite plans don't have that in, because most plans you find online are an elite runner going, oh, well, the best way to train a mid-pack and back runner, the best way to train this newer runner is to just take my plan and shrink it down a little bit, because they're not quite as good. But it doesn't really work, because that elite runner doesn't need to practice tired. Most of them ran in college. They were training 80 and 90 miles a week in college the whole time they were there. Tired legs is not novel for them. And also, you're trying to beat yourself up a whole bunch with a very, well, let's get on to the next question, because I'm going to cover this, but I know it's going to be a thing you cover about length of long run.
So, for a lot of the plans that you find online, they are miles based instead of time based. And for a lot of the new people coming over to this training plan, that's one of the things that they struggle a lot with, is doing time based, because they're so used to always having a mileage in mind, and this is these are the miles I'm gonna hit today. So can you speak to why you decided to go with a time-based plan instead of a miles-based plan, even though that's much less common?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things is that we're not road runners, so we're not talking about a flat road, which, yeah, it can get wet and have a puddle, but for the most part, flat road races are going to be the same as your training runs. I know there's Heartbreak Hill at Boston, but it's not that big compared to trail racing. So with trail, there can be snow, there can be mud. If it sleets and it snows and then it melts and the trails become slop, your long run that used to take 4 hours can suddenly take 6.5 that one day. And your hips are going to be destroyed. And sure, it's a confidence builder, and yes, weather can happen on race day. And no, you should not skip your long run. But at the same time, when you are newer, you should not be going out there for 6.5 hours when you've only built up to 4 just because it hits a particular distance. You are going to injure yourself. You're going to earn yourself several weeks off of running. You're going to limit your progress. You're going to hold up your progress. And mostly you're going to seriously risk injury. If you do decide to do that ever, and many of you will, if you weren't hard-headed, you wouldn't be trying to run a 100-miler, do remember that the following week you're probably going to need to skip one of your easy runs. You might need to cut back or skip your speed work because you're going to be so beat up. That's why a race isn't training. It's okay to run a 50K or 50-miler to get your confidence up. A lot of people do. It's probably even a good idea to get that experience with ultras, but spending that amount of time out on the trail is going to beat you up more. And so we're doing time-based because we know that we can get used to a particular amount of time much more easily than a particular amount of miles, given the variability of trail conditions and hills and all of that.
And we had that happen too. I think last fall we had like a few days of rain, and then some sleet, like melty snow, all of that. The trails were just total soup and mud, and we had a couple new people in like phase 1 just still set on the miles, and they went out and then ended up going from like 3 hours to like 6 hours or 7 hours just trying to hit those miles in these completely different conditions, and one of them ended up with an overuse injury as a result.
Yeah, that happens. Or I've had people who then go to the towpath in order to get their miles number instead of doing the 4 hours or 3 hours that they're up to on the trail. Come race day, you can't go skip out to the towpath when it's muddy. So you have to get used to the conditions. But again, when it's time-based, you will not injure yourself very significantly because you'll be used to the time. You can shorten your stride in the mud, and yeah, your hips will get a little more tired. But you need to stick to the time that you're used to and build that time up gradually if you want to stay uninjured. And there's no guarantees, obviously, but if you want to lower your risk the best that you can, you need to stick to the time and then build it up. And again, you're practicing tired legs, as we mentioned earlier. It's not about the number of miles, it's about spending that many hours out there on your tired legs.
I've also had it too where, for whatever reason I'm feeling extra beat up that week, and then you go to do your long run. If you're fixated on the miles, just always trying to get the miles, if you show up on a day like that, then you are going to end up out there, an hour or 2 hours longer. Basically that means you're working harder on a day that your body was telling you needed to recover versus putting out the same effort over that amount of time, which would be your usual workout. So I think that's another scenario, as well as, terrain, mountains versus flat, and so on.
Well, yeah, and then if I go and I build up on one of these standard plans to doing, because the standard plan will be take Friday off and then go run your increasing mileage on Saturday. Actually, my first 50K, that is how I built up. And I didn't get myself seriously hurt, but it was a little bit rough. But that thing of doing it and then just changing off of the trail if it's too muddy and getting those miles no matter what, it doesn't do nearly as much good as practicing tired legs for the set amount of time, because I was running fresh and then I would pick a route that was runnable so I could get my distance. But come race day, there's mud, and what I needed was my legs to be manageable no matter how beat up I got. And so I remember on my third 50K, I burned my quads out so badly, and I wasn't used to that. I walked the last mile staggeringly. I had to hold on to the rails to go to the restroom because in the handicap stall, because I could not use my quads at all. I'd completely blown them out. I didn't practice downhill repeats, and I wasn't used to how my legs would feel that tired. It was the first time I'd done a hilly 50K, and I was just utterly destroyed. At the time, I was doing just mileage training, and I just didn't get the, so I'd never really learned to manage properly tired. You know, I would save up all my energy and then go and do my long run, having saved up and rested for it to try to hit a mileage number, and I was still doing the same thing for the most part before my first 50 miler, and I walked down the last hill backwards because my quads were too trashed to walk downhill. And then I learned about downhill repeats, and then I kind of started investigating other ways to train. So this comes from some trial and error, and on my part, I did get to the ends of these races, but my first 50K I couldn't walk right for 4 days after. My feet were destroyed. I had not at all practiced any of that, and I damaged myself a bit.
And now, for those who are caught on the miles, we're not saying that you can't keep track of things. So you can. It's just that you don't want to chase those miles, especially in different conditions. But the better thing to do would be to, make note of, okay, what trail did you run today? What were the conditions on that given day? How were you feeling when you started? And then you could compare your time and your progress in comparable conditions. And that's a good way to kind of make sure that you're progressing, because that's another issue on the plan is people kind of parking it. We do see people, have been on the plan for over a year, still at 3 hour long run, and then they go and they run their 100 miler and they say, and maybe it doesn't go so well, and they say, I did the plan. If you kept your long run at 3 hours, you didn't do the plan. That's phase one of the plan. You have to go through all of the phases, and you do have to make sure you continue to progress. So you do probably want to log some of that to some degree and keep an eye on it and set goals, that, okay, last time I did this trail in these conditions, I did this. Today I'm going to try to do it maybe a little bit quicker. We're not saying don't do that, but we're saying don't chase the miles at all costs.
Yeah, if you have a 50K up and coming and look up what the cutoff is, do the math to figure out what that means per mile, put a buffer on that of about an hour, and then see, are you able to do, about a 20-mile training run on your tired legs at a pace that is an hour ahead of the cutoff for your 50K. If you're not, then maybe you'll make it, maybe you won't. It starts to get more questionable. And so when we say don't try to hit mile numbers all the time at all costs, no matter what, we're very serious, but at the same time, of course, do track things. And when a race is getting closer and you have researched a specific race and you're learning about what pace will be required for that race, absolutely compare your training runs to that so you can see if you're being realistic about your chances of finishing.
So let's get into the meat.
The meat. You're a vegan.
The tofu. Let's to the protein of it all. How do you do long run on this plan?
You go to the trailhead and then you leave it on foot. And then when you're half of the time away from it, you turn around and come back.
So can you just take off out of the parking lot and run?
Oh, yeah. Run as fast as you can for as far as you can.
And then have to walk back to the car.
Yeah.
And
no, because that is cool, except, and you will look super cool at the beginning, and I know people who do that. The thing is, you get in the habit of starting fast, and then what happens is you go to because what you do during your long run consistently, you'll do during your race. If you run the first half of your race real hard and burn up all your energy, then you get to death march in the end. If you're stubborn enough, and many of you probably are, you will be able to stagger yourself in and hike out at the end of the course in a lot of pain. However, it's so much more pleasant to just let the people that are doing that plan, and it will be half of the people in the ultra most of the time, especially at hundreds, it is astounding. blow on by you and run up all the hills out of breath, and just take your time, keep your effort even maybe intentionally hold back. Because it's hard, because after taper, of course it feels good. You cannot go run what you feel right after taper and with race excitement unless you want to just blow up. So you hold back some. So what you want to do is practice that at long run. Go and consider, I'm going to be out here for 4 hours. Is what I am doing right now sustainable for 4 hours? If you're not sure, hold back a little. And you're going to play with it. It's going to be a learning curve. So there's going to be some runs where you get to the last half hour and go, geez, I didn't need to walk that much early. Well, good. And there's going to be some where you go, oh, I thought I was holding back, but I wasn't. This is why there's a long run most weeks. It's a time to teach yourself these things, to teach yourself about pacing. It's really important to start to recognize when you're holding back a little and when you're not. Because otherwise you're just going to blow up at your race, and it's going to be really, really unhappy for the whole second half.
Would you say that's the number one goal of long run? Or one of the more important things?
That's definitely, yes. Practicing pacing is extremely important. And that's occasionally I'll assign, especially if I'm coaching someone, I'll assign them progression runs sometimes, which means that you do the second half faster, progressively faster. It's really difficult to do it first because it means holding back a lot early. And people go, well, I'll cheat. I'll just go so easy early. Not cheating. It's okay to do. If you have too much left at the end, it's okay. Go ahead and push hard at the end of long run. And yeah, you'll gradually push a little bit more at the beginning. But it's okay to hold back a little too much. That's not a bad lesson to learn. You are allowed to negative split it. You don't want to always, but you're allowed to sometimes negative split long run. You may even do it more than half the time. And at first you may not. It's a skill set. And it's really hard. If you mess up pacing a 5K, it doesn't actually matter. There's science showing that. I don't know why someone paid for that research, but it's a thing. But 2, if I mess up my pacing in my 5K, I don't really have to stagger very long to get to the finish line. Well, I overpace the first 2 miles and stagger a mile. But if you mess up your pacing in a 31-mile race and you blow up somewhere around 19 miles in, you have a half marathon of staggering to do. If you mess up at 100-mile, you could have over a 50K of staggering. It is not pleasant, folks.
Well, it's mind-boggling to me.
I've done it.
It's mind-boggling to me, like you said, how many people just think that's the cost of running 100. Even people we know who have finished a lot of hundreds, that's just how they run them. That's just how they think they are. They think it's the necessary evil is to just crash and burn and death march to the end. And it's
Power
like,
hike it out.
Yeah, a lot of these people I end up passing. I start super slow, and then so I get to pass a lot of the people who passed me early on, and they are just miserable. They could barely lift their head to say hello. You say, "Hey, how are you?" I'm cheerful, running by, with plenty of energy at mile 80, and they're just pulling themselves
Carmel,
along.
maybe you could have run 45 minutes faster. Well, okay, if you give me a choice for any of my hundreds, since I'm not going to get paid, you have a choice. It's 100 miles. Like, you're going to finish it in 28 hours and 17 minutes or 28 hours and 56 minutes. Who cares? You're going to finish it. Now, you're going to finish it by staggering in misery and borderline injured or actually injured and done running for the next few weeks. Or you're going to finish it cheerful and able to actually go for a light jog 5 days later. Which one of those do you pick? Now, some of you might really want to run 56 minutes faster at any and all costs. Okay, if you're at Western States and it's the difference between getting your sub 24 or not, I understand you're going to destroy yourself. But short of these exceptional circumstances, but just, isn't it better to be actually healthy and feel good? And it doesn't mean that you still won't sometimes have staggering, especially when you're new. Carmel's had some miserable staggering at the ends of things. It happens. But,
so has Lee.
Oh, I've had way more. No, Carmel paces. I say this because Carmel paces better than I do. I've had more staggering than Carmel. I'm more prone to being dumb early in races. I'm much more impulsive. It is very hard for me to pace. Like, girls like, oh, Lee, no, pacing them is difficult. I struggle to hold back enough. It is extremely difficult. I still struggle with it, because it's really, really hard. People go, well, you're just saying it because you're telling us newbies. We are newbies and don't know. But no, I've run over 100 ultra marathons. Pacing is hard. It's hard, it's hard, it's hard. And my best races have been ones where I successfully held back enough early. And even though I intellectually know it, and even though I emotionally know it, I'm sure I'll mess up one again. I'm sure.
Yeah, and I mean, I will say, as I gained experience, that happened a lot less. And I realized at Rocky Raccoon, not to sidetrack things, but I had kind of a rough last loop because my back got kind of bad on me. I have some back issues, and they acted up. And I realized and I wasn't even out of energy. I wouldn't have been death marching if my back wasn't hurting so bad. And I realized, it made me realize what a great race year I had last year, because I finished almost all those races just cheerful with energy left, So I do think that kind of comes with experience. But we're even just talking about finishing in pain and staggering versus not. We're not even talking about how this is also one of the biggest reasons for DNFs. The ones who stagger out the last 30 or 40 miles and make it across the finish line, they're the lucky ones.
And some of those same people, sometimes I've seen some of the same people DNF. And I was like, well, it's just because my stomach. It's just because, but the thing is, your stomach, part of your stomach turning is over pushing and getting anxious.
Right.
And that's that thing where your legs know you're running far. Your whole system knows you're running far. Your whole system feels itself fatiguing and knows because you know, and your whole nervous system is connected. I've seen it. All of your nerves, they connect to your brain. You can't trick yourself. It's really, really difficult to do. And so when you have a lot left, your system will start to get sick. You don't believe you can throw up from emotions? Have you not watched TV? People see the pictures in the police interview room and they throw up. People realize they've lost their money in the market and they throw up. Those movies, I know it's fiction, but that happens. Emotions cause people to get sick. And when you start to blow up, you will start to feel sick. It's a thing. So it really is worth it to hold back and take care of yourself and try to stay calm. And when your body first tries to run long on your tired, beat up legs from your hill repeats or your 6-minute legs or whatever you did to get sore, it is upsetting and people don't like it. And you do feel like you're kind of failing at your long run and you feel like you can't run. When you get used to it, your body learns to be much calmer about discomfort and about that feeling of unable to go. And when you get calmer about it, and when your whole system is just kind of used to it, not so used to it that you've beat yourself into the ground and given up, but when it's a thing that's familiar, that you've had just enough times over the month and recovered from over and over. So then your body's like, oh, we did that. That was horrible. But then actually a few days later, I was fine. No, this thing is going to be okay. Your body learns that you can actually find this reasonably comfortable shuffle and snack and be okay when your legs feel that heavy. And it starts to feel more like they're just a little heavy and thick instead of painful and failing.
And this is this is human nature. I like to bring this back to like pilot training, for example. I used to be a pilot and I used to be a flight instructor, right? You could use that as an example. Before you ever let a student take an airplane up by themselves, you practice engine failures over and over and over again. One of the things I had to do was sign them off for their first solo flight. That doesn't happen until I could pretend we would do simulated engine failures, where I could pretend, okay, your engine has failed, what now? And if they react with any kind of panic, they're not ready yet. It has to become just this whole methodical, easygoing thing. And that goes with other professions too. Firefighters, anything where you're going to be under stress, you're going to practice it until it's second nature. And that's how it needs to be with this as well. When you're talking about, the pace, the tired legs, the nutrition, all of it. So taking that back to pacing during long runs and how pacing during long runs is setting you up for success during your 100-miler. If we were to give some really clear instructions, I think we've kind of talked about it, but clear instructions, basically we're saying you want to, probably starting off newer, have an even pace throughout. Mm-hmm. And then as you get more comfortable with that, try to push the end a little bit.
Yes, it's always good to try to push at least the last, even if it's really only the last 5 minutes. If you can't push, and it doesn't have to be all out sprint, but if you don't have any push at all, you are either starting to run too long too soon, you're out of your endurance, which isn't good. So if you have been doing a 2-hour long run and you switch to 3, some folks can just jump right up to 3 and it's no problem. But if you can't do any push at all for that last 5 minutes, you're just too done in to pick it up even a little bit, either you went too fast or you have extended your time too quickly. Usually you haven't extended your time too quickly if you took enough walk breaks, because most people, if you can jog 2 hours, you can do a 4-hour long run if you would just take a walk break. If you were to just jog for 10 minutes and then walk for 5, you could go 4 hours instead of 2 and you'd be fine. Slowing down often means taking walk breaks. Walk breaks are a part of ultra running. Unless you are elite, there is walking in trail ultra. There's a lot of walking in trail ultra. Elite runners walk during hard rock, during parts of it. So if you're going to be mid-pack and back, even if you're going to be pretty good locally, and you're going to run hundreds, you're going to walk a lot. So get used to it. Don't think of it as we get people that are doing like, well, I just feel like I'm failing when I walk too much in my long run. You're going to have to get over that. Just let it go. This is not road running. It's a different sport, and walking is a part of this sport. And walking with purpose is a part of this sport, and using your walking time to snack and drink things so that you don't dehydrate and run out of energy is also a part of the sport. It's something you have to do.
Sorry, I was laughing a little because I was thinking about the guy at Jigger Johnson who told Laura that he didn't think I was going to make it, and she's like, "Why do you think she's not going to make it?" And he's like, "Because I saw her and she was walking." It's like, yeah, it's like a 54-hour race. I was walking up the mountain eating my snacks. Like, yes, you will be walking. Sorry if I smirked while you were talking about that. That just came into my
I figured there was
came into my head. Yeah, still a little memory. But yes, there will be walking. Now, I want to be really clear here because I think this gets confusing because sometimes we change up the terms, and I think it's because I haven't found the right term for it other than just try and make it even. We can't say maintain a steady pace because this is trail. You're not maintaining a steady pace. You'd be doing it wrong if you're maintaining a steady pace.
Ooh, can you imagine if you tried to just run the same pace downhill,
right,
as you run uphill, as you run flat, as you run in the mud, as you run on the pavement?
Yeah, the quickest way you know somebody has no idea whatsoever about trail running is when you tell them you run ultra marathons and trail, and they're like, "Oh, what's your time for 100 miles?
What's your pace? What's your average pace?"
Yeah. What's your pace or what's your time for 100 miles? It's like that's not a thing. Like, it could be 50 hours. It could be like 27 hours. Like it's so course dependent, and that's the same thing here. So you're not maintaining a pace during long run, but your pace going up a hill at the beginning of long run should be similar or the same.
Your effort.
Going up, but you can't even use effort because then the problem with effort is if you do go out too quick, you could be walking at the end, but you're putting out the same amount of effort. So neither pace nor effort work all of the time here. So the best way I could explain it is, okay, when you're going up the hill at the beginning of long run, it should be at a similar pace as to when you're going up the hill at the end of long run.
True.
When you're going down the hill, it should be similar pace as to when you're going down a similar hill at the end of long. Like, even is just the best way that we could put it.
Absolutely.
You're really just going for even patterns, and like Lee said, if that's walking and then running a little bit, walking, running a little bit, that's what you're going for. You're not going for a run till you can't run and then walk the rest of it. That's the worst possible thing you could do. You really want to stay away from any of that. Put it in the bank mentality.
I'm gonna bank those miles.
Yeah, that's always gonna end in disaster and a less efficient race. All right, so I think we've
You're buying really risky stocks, they're probably going to crash. That's what you're doing. You're not putting money in a savings account.
Yeah, you're putting on credit cards.
Yeah, there's going to be interest. It's going to be awful.
It's going to
compound.
28.8% right there.
It's possibly the best analogy I've heard yet for what it actually is happening when you think you're going to bank miles.
Yeah.
I mean, there are a handful of exceptions, but they're exceptional, not worth going into with getting people.
Yeah.
Horrific heat is the only reason to do that. To vary a huge amount.
To sometimes do that.
If there's horrific heat in the afternoon, it's going to be 110 degrees, and you are going to have to walk. Then you sometimes might go a little faster until the sun comes fully up.
Right.
And then slow way the hell down. But that's
Right.
not the same thing at all.
Yeah, totally
And
different.
don't do stuff with horrific stuff like that when you're a brand new beginner, probably.
So as far as the other things that we're looking for on long run, I had kind of made a list, and we'll see if you have anything to add or you kind of agree with it. The first kind of bullet point that I have is just embracing discomfort in general. So we beat sore legs to death, but I think there's other things to talk about as far as getting used to discomfort. And for me, one of those things is like weather, for example. There are a lot of people who suddenly it's cold out, so they're gonna not do long run, or it's raining out and they're not gonna do long run, or they're gonna go do the treadmill, or it's too hot out, and all these things. You're basically training yourself again, mind body connectivity, and then you have your whole subconscious. Everything you're training is going to come out subconsciously during your race. So if you're training quitting because you got a little bit cold, well, then what's going to happen at your race when you get a little bit cold?
Didn't Amanda Hatton post, I guess I'm calling her by name, but she won't mind. Didn't she post a long run one day in Alaska when it was like minus 36, and then we all stopped complaining about the fact that it was 27 degrees here? Because we had a heat wave comparatively.
All right, next time you want to bail on a long run, everyone, we want you to think of Amanda Hatton. We love you, Amanda. You're fantastic.
There are people that get snow conditions and weather conditions where they really can't go a long run. So it does exist. We know it exists. There are folks that have circumstances that don't allow them to run when it's icy. There are folks who have animal conditions where they live. There are things. Now, we don't want you being a pansy, but we do know there's going to be those of you hearing this going, you don't understand this. We do know there are things, stuff happens, wildfires happen. If you are stuck on a treadmill, you can do it, but understand if you find yourself in this pattern, you better not pick a race. You better look at what the weather range is for your race. And also, you can get unexpected weather. And if you're comfortable just DNFing races and skipping them after paying for them when they're not even canceled because weather happened, well, I guess that's a you do you, but we definitely don't recommend that. Also, if you live where the snow is simply too deep on all of your trails, snowshoes. Yeah, you're going to be walking a whole bunch, but you're going to get strong as heck. It's okay to sometimes go cross-country ski or snowshoe in winter weather. This is an acceptable activity. You can skin up on your skis. So, although it isn't the same as running, it is also completely okay to go ahead and sub some of that stuff in. And that's where time comes in handy. Obviously, the distance is different. Coming down the mountain doesn't count. You skin up on the skis for the length of the long run, all around the mountain. Unless tellies. If you're coming down a mountain on tellies, I think that still counts. Telemark skis are just a hell of a lot of work. But yeah, so there are other approaches, and you can sub them in sometimes. It is not going to be the same. But for those of you who are in circumstances where it is necessary to do some substitution, we do know it happens. Don't feel too bad. But do try to get out regardless of weather, and do try to find solutions that aren't the treadmill too often.
Yeah, I mean, I think use common sense, but when you make something a habit, and I think we've definitely known people who make it a habit of, oh, it's raining, I'm not going.
Oh, yes.
Oh, it's it snowed, I'm not going. So, obviously we don't want to put you in any dangerous situations, but we're just talking about,
your feet don't handle wet because you won't run when it's wet.
Right, right. I had to laugh when you were talking about, like, oh, the conditions for your race might not be what it was when you looked it up. Like, also probably don't sign up for a race that we sign up for, because I think we were just saying how, we signed up for a race where the average was supposed to be 50s. It was the worst weather in 100 years. The coldest weather in 100 years. Then we did a race
one
where
that was like 5 degrees.
Yeah,
Outlaw.
Outlaw. That 1 year of like the horrible freeze, and then one of our next races, or a couple races later, it was the hottest weather for the area in over 100 years for that race.
That was fun.
We've had some of the rainiest conditions.
That was the cow poop creeks.
Yeah,
because we were downstream from
Yeah, so I mean these things. Just the point being, we've had done some extreme conditions on every end of the spectrum: rain, snow, hottest.
That flood in Florida recently?
And none of those were supposed to be... I expect Florida to be swampy, but I don't think anybody expected Rocky Raccoon to be so great. But yeah, I mean, Florida was next level even for Florida. But yeah, just point being is that this stuff happens for hundreds. So if you have that bucket list 100, don't think because, oh, the last 5 years it was nice for this 100, that it's not going to be cold or hot or rain.
Don't sign up if we're running it.
You know, yeah, you need
we
to...
have a weather curse.
So we already talked about pacing and body awareness. I mean, that's another one
I
of
have
those,
another thing
those
I'd
big
like
goals.
to hit.
Yeah, go for it.
So, and I'm not suggesting that you don't use nutrition, but here's a really good activity to do once you get long run out to 3 or 4 hours. Don't have breakfast. If you need coffee to get things moving in the morning, I understand. Go ahead and do that. But do not put in any calories at all. Pack your race vest with all of the things you think work for you for calories.
That was next on my list.
Go to
Nutritional
the trailhead
strategy.
with your water and your calories, and then start your long run. Now, if you're sore and you're starving, and that means that you walk and snack for the first half hour, then that's what you do. But you need to teach your body that when you're sore and when you're hungry and when you feel like crud and you're tired, that then you're going to drink your electrolyte drink and eat your snacks and keep going. And you'll actually start to feel better, and your body will learn that actually hiking about in the woods, putting in the electrolyte drink and snacking makes you feel better. You will learn it on a very, very fundamental physical level. It'll also teach you which things you like. Now, it's only going to work so well. There's nothing like the second half of 100 for teaching you that some things work and some things don't. And there will be a whole podcast only on all of the things stomach and the evils therein and all the problems that occur, because that can't be covered in 5 or 10 minutes here.
No,
it's its whole own topic.
We'll definitely cover
but
that.
That's a very good way to start introducing yourself to that. Now, in a race, 250 to 300 calories an hour. There are some elite folks that are down around 200 an hour. It is going to be mostly carbohydrates. If you are doing your personal fat adapted thing, you have at it, do what works for you. But unless you are doing a very specific, very strict regimen that way, you need carbohydrates. It's how the citric acid cycle works. It's how you make ATP, which is how you get muscle contractions. And so you're going to need to get those in one way or the other. Do I do that running? No, I usually have breakfast and I go run 4 hours and I have maybe 2 gels in 4 hours. But I am more efficient because of having spent years doing this. So you might be more at 4 of them or 5 of them for 4 hours. But no, you should not be trying to put in 200 to 300 calories an hour after having breakfast. That's completely unnecessary, but because it's unnecessary, it's hard to practice nutrition well, and so you should sometimes go ahead and skip breakfast completely and learn what things work for you and practice putting in calories on your run. And then a second fun thing, because the other thing that happens during races, is that you will mess up your nutrition. You will have a perfect plan, and then you will mess up somehow. You'll just need more than you're putting in. You'll miscount. I don't know what happens. But most of us eventually will mess up our nutrition, and we won't realize we've done it. We'll think that we're doing fine, but we aren't. And then the blood sugar crashes. And then suddenly pain hurts more. The pain nerves actually fire more easily past 4 hours as your blood sugar crashes. And we feel like we're dying, and we have no energy, and we have no endurance, and we get depressed. In my case, I start thinking about everything that makes me mad in the world, and I just get angry and don't know why that tree looks so stupid and stuff like that. Just, the emotions, or you get tearful. So in order to find out what this feels like, you want to skip breakfast and don't do this regularly. This is not generally healthy. This is in order to learn. Skip breakfast, put all the snacks, and then see how long you can go before you have any. Like literally go and do 3.5 hours with nothing on no breakfast and pay attention to how you feel. And then when you finally hit a point where you really do feel shaky and like horrible crap, which is going to happen depending on your experience between 2.5 and 4 hours in, usually right around hour 3 it gets real bad. Then stop, sit on the side of the trail or rock, or go very slowly and put in a few hundred calories. Don't run, just like slowly walk, but it's really okay to even just sit somewhere and observe nature. Put in a bunch of calories, and then after about 20 minutes of just walking and letting the calories soak into your system, see how you feel. Yes, at Rex Long Run, yes, you can spend part of your run walking and sitting on the side of the trail, but pay attention, because learning actually how putting more sugar in affects how you feel, your pain level, your energy level, your mood and emotion. I mean, it is astounding to me how much it can affect mood and emotion. People give up. People give up and drop at aid who just needed about 600. They needed to sit down, let their stomach calm down, get some salt in so they could get enough water in to digest, and then get in 600 calories, and they would have been okay. But they're sure they're stress fracturing their foot and in kidney failure and going to die.
Right.
All it is blood sugar.
And I want to be clear here, we're not proponents of fasted long run. We're talking about doing this once or twice as you get close to your 100. And this again goes back to that training, being prepared for something, right? The firefighter does not go fight the fire without practicing it 100 times first, right? We don't want you out in your 100-miler experiencing that hardcore of a calorie crash for the first time. And like Lee was saying, like, until you experience a crash that bad, you won't understand how bad it feels. And I'm going to sidetrack here for a second.
It doesn't work to sit around to do it by fasting, like to fast for a religious reason, even 24 hours, or for a personal or a health reason. It's not the same. Running a long run on no calories without having practiced any other fasting and then just waiting for things to crash is a completely different feeling.
Oh, it totally is. You just feel helpless. And it's not something, until you've experienced it, it's not something you will think you could come back from. Like, you will think it's impossible. And I'm gonna sidetrack us for a second just to tell a story and embarrass myself a little bit. I'll be vulnerable with you guys. So our last race, Forgotten Florida, actually went pretty well considering. I think we fared all right considering the conditions. Like, we were up to
Did you leave your nutrition here in the freezer too?
I did. I left my regular nutrition behind, but I think one of the bigger things was I didn't pack enough layers, so I got really cold. So I found you at about the 60-mile aid station. I remember I'd already
I was changing shoes.
I'd already made my decision to blow through that aid station.
I should have done
I needed a sock change, but I was like, I'm going to get too cold if I get a sock change, because I stupidly didn't pack enough layers for this race. So I'm like, I don't want to get cold. So I started kind of blowing through aid a little bit. And both of us at the end, we just wanted to get done. We were just over it. But we were doing all right. I mean, we were
we were still laughing.
Like, if you've seen, we were pretty cheerful, and we ran it in at the end. Like, we ran it in. We were happy.
My ankle was a little bit
pissed off, I wasn't taking in that many calories at the end of this race, because I knew, like, okay, we just gotta get done. We're almost done. We're almost done. And then we drive back to the Airbnb, and I'm like shivering at this point. And our Airbnb was a shipping container that we found out. I found out race morning when I went to take a shower before the race that it did not have hot water, really. Like, their hot water thing was insufficient. And so there's no hot water, and then also the heat wasn't working right, like in the shipping container.
Oh yeah.
And then this crash just hits me, because I got
the heat to work.
I'd been going light on the calories for probably the last 15 miles of that race, like lighter than I should have. I was doing some calories, but I knew I was getting behind, but I also knew that I was going to be done by the time it really hit. But unfortunately for Lee, it really hit.
Oh no, this was fun for Lee.
It really hit. Like, at that moment in the shipping container.
And
we were trying to, like, get the heat to work, and trying to see if we could get any hot water from the shower. And then, like, everything just felt completely helpless.
I was
like, I didn't feel capable of doing anything. And I just, like, sat down on the ground and cried.
She did. She sat down. She said, and I didn't notice for something. I'm like, okay, well, we got to get warm. So I go and I wipe down my legs, and I get clean enough that I can put on long pants. I wipe off my upper, horse bath in the bathroom sink. Just as I wanted to so I dry myself off and put on like a hoodie and some track pants, figuring what the hell they'll go in the wash later. Any remaining residue on me, I'd got the lubricants off. And then I'm like, okay, so food is next, and I start boiling water, and I like, wait, where's Carmel? So I'm yelling, hey, and it's a small space. So where did she go? Because I don't see her. And then I realize she's sitting against the bedroom wall, just fetal, except that sitting up with her knees against her chest, just sitting there with little tears coming down her face, making weird little sounds.
Just like shaking, because I'm so cold.
She hasn't even pulled a blanket off the bed. She hasn't anything. She's just curled up to conserve her little body. Didn't get a blanket, didn't take off the wet stuff, Nothing.
And that's how stupid you go,
sitting
though.
in a little ball
like, you
against the
literally
bedroom
just,
floor.
like, if you let your calories crash that bad,
Oh, it's so
like,
funny.
you don't even feel like your brain doesn't work enough to be like, oh, let me take off these wet clothes, let me grab a blanket, let me grab a towel, let me do anything, let me put this hoodie on, it's dirty anyway. Like, your brain just doesn't even work that well, so you can't imagine
I had to
coming
help
back
a
from
little
that.
bit.
And a lot of these times, these people will come into aid stations crying this way because they've crashed that way. You know, thankfully this was after the race, and we've both seen each other in some
I've been like
precarious.
that at an aid station
yeah,
before,
yeah,
except I
we've seen
know.
each other in precarious positions due to
Drink a
calorie
Coke.
crashes,
Drink
but
a Coke.
that was a particularly bad one. But yeah, then Lee brought over the Triscuits and the guacamole, and it starts to come back really quick. I start to function again, and so when we're telling you to try this exercise once or twice, it's not because we think, you know, it's not because we think you're going to build endurance or that it's efficient for that or
this
any
isn't
of
about
that.
carrying the boats and making yourself
This is
miserable.
about feeling that kind of calorie crash on a basic level and then putting in the sugar and learning, just really experiencing how quickly you can bounce back from that really, really horrible state, like from feeling like you're gonna cry, from feeling like it's all over, and from realizing that that's where those emotions are even coming from, that
And
they're
four
related
hours,
to the
4 hours
crash.
of training run, 5-hour training runs will not do it the way that 100 miles.
Not like that,
but
no.
it will teach you enough that you'll start to understand, and it's really important to understand before you start running hundreds.
But of course, that's an optional exercise. We understand that could be like a sensitive topic, any kind of restriction for some people. So if it is, don't worry about it. Don't do it if it's a sensitive, you know, issue for you. But it is.
But
it can be really educational. I would say.
Well, and if you go into an aid station and you're pretty sure that you're going to need to drop and everything's horrible, and they're trying to talk to you and they're going to try to med check you and mental status check you, and if you come into the aid station and you realize when you start to talk that you feel like you're choked up, it's hard to make words, you're going to probably cry, just say Coke. Ask for Coke, because they will always have Coca-Cola. And if they don't, they'll have ginger ale or Mountain Dew or something. Drink. I know it's a toxic, horrible stuff. It's very bad, except it's a drug, and its appropriate use is you have crashed yourself horrifically in a 100-miler. So remember when Carmel first started, she was like, I told her this, and she said, I don't know why you put this unhealthy crap in your body. I'm a clean eater, and I'm not going to do this healthy sport and then have something as bad for me as Coca-Cola. Are you out of your mind, basically? She was having none of it. I was like, look, you don't like people interfering with you. I'm telling you right now, if you crash your calories, which you probably will, and you come into an aid station in the middle of the night and they're talking to you and you can't make words, ask for a Coke. Because if you don't ask for anything, they're going to keep talking at you and you're going to get more upset. If you ask for a Coke, they'll go get you one. When they bring it, start sipping it, or at least look like you're sipping it, because then they'll believe that you know what's wrong and you're fixing it. So they'll stop bothering you. But no. Then she drank an entire can of Coca-Cola because they gave it to her and felt completely
well,
better. And told me about it so I could tease her about it.
And to back up, for my training runs, my first year training for 100-miler, I fueled with nuts, dates, and dried fruit, and Lara bars, which at the time, Lara bars were like, ooh, these are kind of processed, even though they have like 6 ingredients. This is kind of pushing the edge of, you know, clean eating. Like, that's where I was at as far as eating goes. So I'm like, I'm just going to fuel my race on nuts and dates and Lara bars. And like, into my first 100-miler attempt, about 40 miles in, 45 miles in, I hit like a drop bag and like took one bite of like a Lara bar. I was like, like I could no longer eat my nuts or dates. I was like, this is all garbage. Like, it all was just horrible and required too much chewing, and I didn't have enough spit. It was just like, this is awful. What am I gonna do? And I calorie crashed that race too. But until I started to figure out like refined sugar is the answer.
Isn't that where you got the Swedish fish also? You ate like Swedish fish and drank a whole Coke?
No, that was
another race with the Swedish fish.
The
whole Coke was something else. Oh yeah.
Well, the whole Coke I had at the Bear, which was my first 100-miler finish. I remember I started to crash around like 75 miles and started to do ultra math, where I'm like, I'm not gonna make it. I'm not gonna make it after all of this. After getting this far, I'm not gonna make it. And then I had a Coke, and I was like, I'm gonna make it.
If they haven't forced you to stop and you haven't missed the cutoff, don't do math.
It just absorbs so quickly. But the point being, any kind of like refined sugar is gonna it's going to be quick fuel, and unfortunately the healthy stuff is not quick fuel.
If you consider derivative and integral calculus to be basic math, you still can't do math at mile 80 of 100. I don't know why. It's impossible. If your math isn't at that level, you definitely also can't. Although I think actually sometimes people with less math skills do better with race math. Generally, though, no, I have no idea why. It's impossible. You will figure out how your pace means that you're going to DNF, and you will be wrong. It's because your low blood sugar brain is trying to trick you into stopping. That's what it is.
But anyway, so nutritional strategy, something to be worked out on long run. Just know that it's not going to necessarily give you all the answers. And that is one area where we say to kind of avoid doing a lot of racing during your 100-miler training. We have those serial 50K runners where they're always doing 50Ks instead of long run, and we're saying, yeah, that's less efficient than doing the training plan, but it doesn't hurt to throw in a 50K, a 50-miler, a 100K somewhere along the way so that you could test out some of these things, including nutritional strategy, because long run's not going to tell you everything, though it can help you eliminate some stuff. Next important bullet point I have that long run could be used for, and this goes back to Forgotten Florida, which basically the whole course was flooded at Forgotten Florida, at our last two races, really, Forgotten Florida, and then, we had Rocky Raccoon, Forgotten Florida, and that Wild Goose was in September where there was a tropical storm. Although it
rained the whole time.
I will say, despite the fact that it rained the whole time,
my feet were fine.
The course was not nearly as bad as Rocky Raccoon and Forgotten Florida. I mean, Forgotten Florida got crazy.
I've never done a course that was that bad muddy wise.
Forgotten Florida?
For that much of it. Like I've had
I mean, not just mud, just that, flooded.
Knee-deep flooded,
yeah.
For miles.
Knee-deep flooded for...
Not like, because that was the thing, like Rocky Raccoon, there was like, this section has the flood on it, but then thered be 3 or 4 miles of it wasn't. Nothing.
There were runnable sections, but Forgotten Florida just got to the point that it was just like, this is our life now. Wading through the swamp. But we came out with pretty decent feet, I would say.
Yeah.
In all 3 of those races. So, long run, as a strategy for toughening up your feet. Something you can do, what I would suggest is not lubing up your feet for a long run. Right?
Just dump a cup of water on both feet at the start.
Dump a cup of water, or if there's like a stream or something, like saturate those babies. If you can't get through a whole long run without that really bothering your feet, maybe wait till halfway through the long run, and then at the halfway point, try to find a creek or a stream, get those feet wet, and keep building up and try to do some entire long runs with wet feet. You really want to get your feet used to being wet.
Now, everyone thinks I'm joking, and this is obnoxious, but often people will long run with friends and go get lunch afterward. And although I will take off my wet sports bra and top and everything and put on nice dry clothes on the top of me, I will leave my wet socks and shoes on. I won't take them off till I get home. So even with a 4-hour long run or a 5-hour long run, I will often end up with my feet wet and in wet socks for 8 or 9 hours in a row total, if they got wet right at the beginning, because of driving and lunch and driving home, at least 8 hours, I guess. And, it's helpful, because you do build up, when you're not used to having wet feet, you will get pruny feet in 45 minutes. When your feet are used to it, it takes a lot longer. And the skin on your feet does need to toughen up a little bit. You don't have to do it, but people drop because their feet...
I've seen a lot of... given the last 3 races that we did, I've been seeing a lot of drops due to feet lately. But yes, it's because of the nature of those races.
Do the foot kit and all that, but you don't do that during long run. During long run isn't long enough, so your feet should be able to tolerate 8 hours of wet without coming apart. If they can't yet, then that is something to work towards gradually. And like everything else, you do it gradually. Don't decide to do 8 hours apropos of nothing when you're used to completely dry feet and then expect a good result. You'll just completely destroy your feet.
And we're not going to get into it now, but if you haven't seen our foot care kits, check out the foot care section. But that's 4 races. we're saying you should be able to get through long run without foot care.
Yeah, because it's going to be 8 hours between drop bags often in 100 or more. And so you need to be able to make it 8 or 10 hours with wet feet without a crisis.
So moving on, did you have anything else on feet for long run?
Take blisters seriously. I'll probably cover it in another one of these. If you get a blister and it unroofs, which means the skin came off the blister, the skin underneath is exposed, and you decide before it's healed to go run more, and that blister gets another blister in the new skin, and then that also unroofs, so you have a now deeper blister, it is going to begin to act more like a second-degree burn. You're going through your layers of skin. That can get dangerous in the same way that a burn can. If you have a 50-cent piece or a quarter size, if you have a quarter size second-degree burn, it is a big deal. You are going through your layers of skin. Do not have where you've gone through all the layers of skin and there isn't really skin there, you're at the layer underneath, and you're still trying to run on it. That's not good. You can, in fact, end up with a third-degree burn situation where you've gone through all your layers of skin and give yourself gas gangrene. It's extremely difficult to do, but being tough is one thing. Running on layers of blisters doesn't typically happen in a single 100. This happens because people have blisters that aren't fully healed and then go run on them again and again and are just getting a deeper and deeper blister. Do let blisters heal. Not letting blisters heal properly is not tough. It's a stupid. Once you can run through it on your single run, but once you get a serious blister and the skin is torn, you need to get that healed before you go do more long runs on it. We do not want you guys getting actual infections in your feet. If you have red around a blister or a cut on your foot and you're not sure, take something that is permanent and draw a line around the border of the red. If you wake up and write the date and time next to it. If you wake up in the morning and the red has gone significantly over that line, you are getting an infection. Go to urgent care. Okay, that's the end of today's lecture on your health. It's very rare. You'll probably all be fine. But I would just hate to find out someone was trying to be tough because I said be tough and toughed out something they shouldn't have and, wound up in the ICU because they gave themselves gas gangrene in their foot. Very uncommon, but people accomplish it sometimes.
All right. The next point that I have, test everything.
Food?
Well,
Yeah.
No, we already talked about food, but test everything else too. So
sports bras, don't wear a new sports bra the day of the race unless you want to lose skin.
Right. So, I've certainly never done anything new on race day. Never wore your shoes or anything.
Wait, did you wear my shoes for Forgotten Florida for part of it?
No, I forgot. I mean, okay,
Yeah,
this
did.
wasn't intentional.
You wore my backup shoes.
But we have the same shoes for that. No,
That's
for Run Love It, I forgot my race shoes and I wore your race shoes that didn't fit me well at all and they broke open at the end. Do you remember?
Do you remember Blood Rock when I didn't realize I had a tear in my shoe until the flight and I bought new shoes the day before the race at a running shoe store and they were a model that I never run in and then I ran the whole race in them?
Yeah, but no, for Run Love It.
Don't do that though.
The whole shoe broke open and my toes were exposed.
Oh yeah. That happened to me with
my
the shoe,
toes
too, but
were
I borrowed
coming
shoes
out
on
of the
course.
shoe.
That happened to me at Eastern States.
But so generally you want to do as we say and not as we do, and avoid
Keep in mind
those.
we say it because we've made mistakes.
Avoid those mishaps. Pretty much long run is a great time to test everything, especially if you are not coming from like a strong ultra running background. Like maybe you don't have a running vest picked out yet. Figure out which vest feels good. Use it to test multiple vests.
If you have friends, borrow and try.
And then once you figure out your vest, continue to wear that vest for training.
That's the thing I used to do when I was new. Because your vest will chafe the crap out of you. It will sit funny. And a lot of them are more adjustable than people realize. So look up the video online from the company if there is one.
Yeah.
Load it up like you're going to go on long run or race. Like with the water and the calories. And go do your 3 or 4 miles around the city.
Yeah,
People will look at you funny. You're ultra runner. You're going to be looked at funny. Everyone thinks you're a crazy freak. Anyway. So you just got to get over that. And you got to wear that vest to everything. Little local pub runs. First time I had to wear a fuel belt, I thought it was going to kill me. And so I wore it on every single run for 2 months to get used to the idea of having anything on my body because I hated it so much.
Yeah, so no matter what, we pretty much wear our race gear for long run, but when we get new race gear, we'll even wear it for 3 miles around the block is basically what she's saying.
To test it.
Cares what people think? Like it's more important. I mean, one would think your 100-miler is more important to you.
No,
not,
if you want to, if you want to
spots.
get people to think strange things, what you got to do is live somewhere flat and do tire toe instead of hill repeats.
Yes. And
Toe
then you
tar
could
kind
have
of
like
behind you. That'll get people interested.
then you could have like 5 people in a row go by making like the same tire joke, like you got a flat tire.
Mm-hmm.
I like had literally 2 guys say that within 2 minutes. Like one of the last times I did tire towing. But anyway, yes. So test all your race gear, vests, shirts, shorts. Shorts are a big one.
Oh.
The
spot where your leg becomes not leg anymore on inside side, the bikini line.
Yes. So I had this happen to me. I remember on one of like, as we were getting closer to my first 100-miler,
And actually
that happened on a
like
long run.
like a 7-hour
like
long
I
run.
fell like way behind you and Mel because of it, and you like I came in
Or
just
just a
kind of
long
with a
run.
funny little shuffle, and you guys are like, "What's going on?" And I'm like, "These new shorts, the liner." Like, so we actually both cut the liners out of our race shorts. You need to be careful about how you sit if you don't want to give a show after that. But I think we both find that those built-in race liners could be kind of chafy during hundreds.
It's fine. It's fine for 50K. It's not 500. Now, some people will have where that seam is their skin will chafe their skin. And you'll find out by the end of the long run. Like, something that's a little sore at the end of the long run bears paying attention to. So some folks have to lubricate in some way the bikini line area because it will just chafe itself, skin on skin. So there's all kinds of products for that. Trail Toes is a real popular one. Some folks actually use silicone-based sexual lubricant because it's also safe for the area and it's very long-lasting, and it will protect the skin from chafing itself fairly effectively. Another really popular one that's fairly effective is cheap speed stick type deodorant, just stick deodorant. You just wipe the stick deodorant on. It works better than half of the fancier, much more expensive products made for that. Same with where bras chafe. For me, it actually works better to take something like Skinsake or Arm & Hammer friction stick, which are really close to being a stick deodorant, except they don't have the deodorizer in them, and putting it on the bra where the bra touches my skin instead of on my skin. Like actually lubricating the little line of the bottom of the bra. Because where your bra bottom band is, that bottom band can move. In some folks, it's a non-issue. And what makes it an issue is how much does that band move, which is often related to how much your breasts move, often related to your build. Mine, not all that much, and so it's not a huge thing, and it can vary for some people, and for me at any rate, when I had more of a cycle, it would vary with where I was in my cycle. That about to get your periods, your breasts swell up a size, because they retain water, and it's so comfortable. Love when that hits near your race. It's so great. But so if that's happening, that's something that you'll have a little bit of a tender spot on your skin there. It's going to be a lot worse during 100. Some people just take and put KT tape on that skin before there's any lotion or anything. Strip of KT tape wherever the chafing's happening. Make sure you've rubbed it to heat it up to get it to stick, and then get dressed. So those are definitely things to test out. A lot of people wear compression shorts under whatever they're wearing in order to stop the chafing. If your thighs touch each other, most people's do, but not everyone's, then your thighs can chafe each other. You may just need to go with compression shorts. Make sure there's no central seam going right down the middle of the delicates. It's not going to be comfortable.
Yeah, I think.
But test things.
I really want to drive home that if something is bothering you even slightly on a 3 or 5 or 8 hour long run, it's going to be a problem in your 100-miler. And I think I ignored some things as far as the shoes I was using, training for my first 100-miler. At the very, very end of long run, I'd get this like little discomfort, and just kind of ignore it. Like, it's a little discomfort. It's at the end. But if that's happening to you on long run, over the course of 100 miles, it's going to be a problem. And like we said, this could come from unexpected places. Like your vest can, cause a hot spot. Like things that you're not thinking of. So any gear that you plan to use, or if, you might be doing like a rainy race, we've had issues with rain jackets that just weren't good at all, like you you don't really want to find that out for the first time during a race. You want to find that out on a training run when you can. So, even a rain jacket, if it starts to rain, use that as an opportunity to get out there and test your rain jacket. Just all of your gear, try to test it before getting to race day. So you have anything else to add? For anything else, so, obviously, I think people think, oh, long run, that's straightforward. Like, why have a whole thing on it? But we have a lot here. It could be used. You have to kind of change your mentality about long run.
If you're training for 100, you do. It's not road marathon training. Long run is just about getting out to either 18 or 22 miles, depending upon your training philosophy, in order to have the endurance to do your marathon successfully. And it's just something that you go and run, and it's one of those torture rites of passage parts of marathon training. So 100 miles is completely different, because you're not going to go run. When you go run a 22 miler before a 26.2 mile race, maybe you only get to 18. That's still very close. The longer the ultra distance, the more you're not doing that in training. You're not coming anywhere close to that in training, but you need training to prepare you all the same. And so this training is very much designed to prepare you, because the goal is no longer to run almost the race distance so that you can be sure you can run the race distance. Do you know what? You're never going to be ready for a 100 miler. Do you know why? No one is ever ready for a 100 miler. It's insane. So you're never going to be truly ready. You're going to have to just go do one and just do the best prep that you can and then go for it. But you're never going to be fully ready. You're never going to know what's going to happen ahead. It's too big, and you just have to do the best preparation you can, which is what we're trying to help you with, and then just go and do it.
And then I have one last topic for long run, and that's, when is it okay to miss it? When should you miss it?
Oh.
Well, those are big questions. So I'll say one of the things that I've compared, I feel like we have kind of like 3 key workouts where it's like your Saturday workout, whether that be hills or the tempo run, your speed work day during the week, and then long run. And those are those 3 key ingredients. And I kind of compare it to being new at a job that you really want to keep, but having like limited PTO. And like, okay, would you call off that job for this? But that doesn't really include the tweaks and injuries. So when would you say, I guess first let's talk about, when would you say you maybe should consider missing a long run?
If you didn't recover from the previous week's long run and you can tell that a tweak you had as a result of last week's long run is still there, you need to skip this week's long run and spend the next week sorting out that tweak or considering whether you are running too hard or too long, or a combination of them during your long run. So that would be one thing. You should be able to recover. But sometimes you build up long run for 2 or 3 weeks in a row, and then even very good runners, it's very common to train up 3 weeks and then come down a week and go very light volume. And that light volume week would mean that Saturday or Sunday is a run and the other one isn't really. It's a hike. So I might, if I was trying to take a down week, either only run one of those 2 days and make that like a 2-hour run, even though I'd previously done like a 2.5-hour punctuated tempo or hill repeat workout or something on Saturday, and then done a 4 or 5 hour long run Sunday. On my down week, I would do 2-hour easy jog Saturday and go hike with friends or do housework on Sunday and ignore it, or go for like a 4-mile neighborhood jog.
Well, and I'll interject
and
here.
That would be the down week. So skipping every 4th or 5th week, it's a good idea to not do a serious long run and to actually let your body recover more fully. So even if there's no other reason, constantly ramping up every single week is just asking for trouble. You're not getting as full of recovery, and you don't get stronger during long run. You don't. You get weaker during long run. Well, you get stronger when you recover.
I'll interject that this is built into the plan. We're not saying you have to make like a new thing. This is built into easy week.
And for a reason.
When you start doing hard week, which you should be doing once you're in that phase 2. When you're in phase 1, your volume's really not high enough, I'd say, to make this necessary. It's not built into phase 1, right? Mm. But
so let's see, reasons to skip. I would say the reasons to skip any of the hard workouts are all the same as each other. And for the most part, you are better off just skipping it entirely and really recovering than trying to half-ass it. Like, well, I can't really do long run, so I'm going to do 2.5 hours instead of 3.5 hours. But, well, you're not, if the problem is that you're not fully recovered, you should go ahead and fully recover. Because it's better to miss 2 workouts right now than 4 weeks later because you pushed through and now you have a walking boot on, or you just can't run at all and you're miserable. So the next thing would be at rest pain. At rest pain means I'm sitting here on my couch with my feet up, and yeah, every once in a while I get a weird twinge somewhere because I'm old and arthritic and these things happen and nervous systems are what they are, but where you just have a lingering pain. Like if you roll your ankle and you're thinking, maybe I should put an ice pack on it, it's kind of achy, maybe I'll take some Motrin. You have at rest pain. If I go to walk around and run up my steps and it's a little bit sore, that's not at rest pain, that's pain reacting to my motion, which means I need to take it easy. But if you are having at rest pain, you need to stop all of your runs immediately, and you need to figure out what's going on. So at rest pain is a reason to not do it at all. The next thing would be pain that is settling into a joint. Not your muscles are sore, and not that it's tweaky. I've had plenty of runs where for the first mile or two, my one ankle was stiff or my big toe joint was sore, my one knee was picky, and I had to like stop for a minute and stand up extra straight and really flex my butt muscles to get my knee to behave because I was tired and I get a lazy gait thing. But if you can't get things to settle down after a couple miles and you're actually having pains directly in the joint, or you're getting at rest pains when you're not running, then you need to stop running and address those. Think of anything else?
No, that makes sense. And I guess the only other thing I'd add is about missing it probably when you shouldn't be missing it. And I think from
when you're like, oh, but I had an extra drink last night. I'm dehydrated. I shouldn't long run. Yes, you should. Put some electrolytes in your water and go long run. Take advantage. If you drinking's bad, we're not endorsing drinking. If you happen to be a person who uses alcohol, I hear this all the time from people. Hangover is an excuse for missing long run. No, it is not. Yes, you probably are going to have to use the bathroom behind a tree if you drank cheap beer the night before, because it is rough on your system. Alcohol is rough on your system. You're going to be dehydrated. It's a great training opportunity. So skipping because you have the flu, yes. Skipping because you had a couple drinks last night, no. Skipping because you would rather that you got a little more sleep, no. You're training for 100. Let this be a lesson to you to make better choices or different choices or schedule your runs differently. But actually being up till 1 o'clock in the morning and having a hangover, and so now it being morning and not feeling phenomenal, you know what? It's going to happen in 100. And it's time-based. You can still get your electrolyte drink and get yourself together and go out to the park and go stay moving.
And there's not, I think, the number of long runs you can miss is obviously, we can't put a number on it. It's going to be highly variable, but that's also where I like that PTO analogy. Like if you pull that crap at a new job and you're missing, work for those types of reasons repeatedly, you're going to lose that job. Somebody with more seniority, so, in this case, somebody who's been running longer, like us, if you're running 100 averaging 100, more than 100 a month or every
we promised.
What is it, 1.5 months? I don't know. We did 900s in a rolling 12-month period. We have a little more seniority. We could miss a few long runs without it having as much impact. But if you're newer to this, especially, you really don't have a lot of leeway. If your goal, the more ambitious your goal is, the more you're trying to come from, lower and build up to 100 in a quicker period of time. You can't be missing long run. Like,
if you aren't doing 2 of them a month, then you're really jeopardizing the chances that you're going to be able to do hundreds. Yeah. It's going to occasionally not go down that way for some people, but it's real good idea to try to make 2 of these a month.
And I would say, I know for me, I got, we're getting a little off track, but not completely, because, motivation here and getting the long run done matters. I got really, really bored with our local trails. So I started to do a thing where I would just drive out to trails I've never been to before, and it started to kind of re-motivate me a little bit. That kind of thing. Anything you could do to kind of make it exciting. But if you're having a really hard time doing long run at all, you might want to kind of evaluate that a little bit, because I think I see that sometimes where people like the idea of running 100-miler, but they don't like running, like ever. It's just like they don't want to go do long run ever.
They
And
don't
it's like,
actually really like it. They just like the idea of it.
yeah, like
And that's the thing in all of life.
right. Well, it's probably if you're trying to find this really big thing to accomplish, but long run is just awful for you. Maybe we don't want you to go do this thing and have a bad experience. And if you're never doing long run and showing up for your 100-miler off of like one long run a month, it's not going to be a pretty experience.
Not proper. Probably not. No.
It's unless you have some hardcore other background, like some really rare thing.
Backpacking. Sometimes through hikers can get away with all manner of stuff. And sometimes mountain bikers that they'll tend to end up with Achilles and calf problems will manage to do a whole lot off of huge high volume.
But yes, it's not. If
you're riding mountain bike hundreds on a single speed, you're probably going to be okay, even though you'll have a tight Achilles tendon.
But yeah.
But otherwise, yeah. No.
Overall, it's not going to be pretty. So find some way to make long run happen, because it is a key ingredient. You can't not have it as part of the training plan. All right. Do you have anything else to add?
No, the only things I can think. No, I think that's it. I think we've covered everything without going into ridiculous stories.
All right. Well, if there's anything about long run that we did not cover, shoot us a message. Let us know.
Or just ask it right open on the page.
Yeah. Message.
Tag me.
Put it on the page. Tag us. The whole thing. But yeah, hopefully we covered most of it. All right. Good night, everybody.